My former employer was refusing to pay me my money that he owed me, claiming that he was going through financial hardship and that because he was closing down his business, he was not going to pay me a single dime. So I decided to get some revenge. And as a result of me being involved, he ended up getting exposed for cheating on his wife, resulting in his life practically being ruined. Here's what happened. So honestly, I want to start off by saying I was just trying to get my money that I was owed. I wasn't trying to ruin this guy's life in the process. That's honestly just what ended up happening. And I was told by some of my friends that I might want to upload this story here. So here we go. Some years back, I ended up doing work for this guy. I'll call him Richard, that's not his real name. And it was just a side job for some extra money, not my career or anything like that. Richard had a small business. It's really boring. I won't really get into any of that. But before me, he had one other employee. So I made two in total. Literally just two employees. That's how small this business was. The thing was, Richard ran his business like garbage. I didn't know the specifics of his financial situation, but based on where he lived, the car that he drove, as well as every other aspect of his life, he was doing pretty well. Maybe it was an inheritance or something like that, but whatever, I didn't know. But his situation in life clearly wasn't due to the business. And again, to reiterate, he ran this business horribly. In fact, he ran this business so badly that after 6 months after I started doing work for him, the business wasn't making any money anymore. So instead of regular payments like usual, the other employee and I had to start asking where our money was before it showed up. Then the payments started getting more and more behind. Eventually, I was owed around $500. Then one day, the other employee tells me, I'm done. He owes me like $5,000 and I'm not going to keep working for nothing. And when I heard that, I was in shock because I had no idea he was owed that much. The trouble with pay clearly went back further than I knew. So Richard ended up coming to me and saying, look, I owe the other guy money and I need to pay him. Do you mind if I get him all paid up? Which means I would have to hold off on paying you for a month or two, but once he's paid off, I swear I'll make it all up to you. Now, because I'm a complete idiot, and because I felt bad about the first employee, who was a good guy overall, I said fine, go right ahead. And honestly, this was such a big mistake, as things escalated in a way that I really didn't expect. So I didn't get paid at all for a while, which increased my total up to about $1,500. Then I eventually heard from the other employee, and he told me that Richard finally paid him everything he was owed. So I thought to myself, great, now it's my turn, right? Well, I was completely wrong. A few weeks after I heard the other employee was paid up, which I only ever heard from him, never Richard himself, Richard told me he was closing the business, which didn't shock me at all. I mean, surely it had been losing money for quite a while. So I say to him, okay, so where's my money? And I told him exactly how much he owed me. I got back a response that basically said, well, the thing is, I can't really pay you now. And then he started giving me excuses. And this went on for a year. Now, I looked into what my steps were legally, but I would have had to file something in small claims court, as it is only $1,500, and having to get a lawyer would probably eat up most of it. So I just kept bugging Richard about the money. I was saying, hey, just pay me $25 a month. I don't care. But he wouldn't even do that. He told me about how he's got to go through all this stuff to dissolve the business and everything, and how he'll pay me as soon as he can. And overall, he just avoided taking responsibility. At one point, he said something about how people were currently suing him, which honestly is not a big shock, if I wanted to, just so my debt could be added in or something like that. I said, fine, give me their names and numbers. But guess what? He never even did that. Eventually, I realized that nothing was ever going to come of this, and I was just going to be out the money I was owed. But while I'd be doing the work for him, I had emailed back and forth with his wife maybe a dozen times. To this day, I've never met his wife. I've never spoken with her, just communicated through email and text messaging. But she seemed really nice, and she had told me something like, well, Richard won't tell you this, but he doesn't really know what he's going to do with the business, and I know you've been a big help. So I just got the idea that, you know what? This next email I send to Richard about trying to get my money, I'm going to include his wife in on it too, just so she knows how much he sucks. I heard back from her almost right away, and she was like, I'm so sorry about this. Please keep me posted on what happens. Then suddenly, just like magic, Richard started talking about making a payment schedule. He started sending me $100 every month, and the debt got down to about $1,000. I figured that his wife must have gotten on his case about it, and I laughed to myself about how whipped old Richard really was. But then the money suddenly stopped again. The excuses started coming in, and one day, he told me he was just going through a hard time financially right now, which I knew was utter garbage. He still had the nice car, the nice house, etc., but it's not like I had a printout of his bank records that I could easily use to try and call him out on this. On that exact day that he told me this though. I was watching the local pro team's baseball game later that night, and who did I see but Richard himself? And he was in great seats no less, second row right in front, just off to the right. Every time they zoomed in on a right-handed batter, you could clearly see him. And this was in September, in the midst of a playoff race, so those tickets were not cheap. It's no Perry Mason moment, but the thought of replying to his "I'm having financial trouble" email with a picture of him in those seats and me being like, yeah, I can see that, gave me the best justice idea ever. So I was looking for a good image of him to use, but every time I paused the video, his face got somewhat out of focus. It was clearly him if you watched the video, but I needed a still image that was also clearly him. Then, in the 7th inning, a foul ball got caught about 2 rows behind him, and they zoomed in on that area of the crowd. And there was Richard, clear as day, sitting with his wife of all people. I'm thinking to myself, oh, I got you now. The next morning, I replied to his previous message by sending the screen capture to him. I figured even if I didn't get my money, at least I had that one sweet moment of satisfaction of busting him there. Then, almost at the last second, I decided to send it to his wife too, just so she would know what was going on and how the money had stopped again. And remember how quickly Richard's tune had changed that first time I included her? I even thought that maybe her being in the picture would make her light a fire underneath his butt this time. So I sent it, but I didn't hear anything back from either of them. 2-3 days go by and still nothing. Then I heard from the other employee that I'd worked with. He says, "Hey, did you hear about Richard?" I said to them, "No, what happened?" They say to me, "His wife kicked him out and filed for divorce." I'm saying to myself, there's no way. They say to him, "Yeah, apparently she caught him cheating on her." I responded to my friend by saying the following, I wonder how. Okay, you know what would be crazy? What if that wasn't his wife in that picture? And I sent her that picture and no way. He was probably talking about divorce when he mentioned having financial trouble. I mean, that would make sense. The divorce was already in the works before the picture. There's literally no chance whatsoever that I inadvertently told his wife that he was cheating on her, right? I mean, come on, there's no way that happened. But guess what? That is exactly what happened. The woman at the game was not his wife. Apparently his wife knew the woman though, and knew that Richard had lied about where he was that night and who he was with. And an absolute storm of garbage of epic proportions quickly followed after that. I ended up emailing her not long after and being like, hello? I've been hearing some things and I can't help but think that picture I sent might have been a part of this. And she said that she'd been meaning to contact me, and she actually thanked me. She said she wanted out of the marriage anyways, and she said she might need me as a witness, but I didn't know what for. I mean, are divorces like a trial or something like that? But anyways, she paid me the $1,000 he owed me, plus another $500 on top of that. I don't know if she thought he still owed me $1,500, or if she did that on purpose to try and give me some extra. And thankfully, I didn't have to be a witness for anything, which honestly was good. Also, you remember how Richard has a nice car and a nice house and all that? Well, his wife was the one with the money, meaning that he no longer has it. They got divorced and he moved away, and I have no idea what became of him. Honestly, considering everything that happened, I feel kinda bad for him. But then I remember there's no reason he couldn't have just paid me. Seriously, why not just pay me? He had the money, but I honestly chalk it up to Richard having a lot of negative karma coming his way, and I just so happened to play a part in catching him in it. Wow, that's honestly insane. You were just trying to get your money. You literally were not trying to break up this marriage. So when you saw him at the game and you sent that picture, you were literally just trying to get back at this guy. And honestly, I don't blame you. He owed you over $1,000. I don't know about you, but working for free and not having your paycheck come in really does suck. It basically makes what you're doing a complete waste of time. So good for you for standing up for yourself and in a way basically tearing this guy down. This guy absolutely had it coming. He was clearly never gonna pay you, and you are 100% right. His bad karma was coming his way one way or another, but it's really cool to see that you were the one to help tip the scales. If you like Am I the Jerk, you're probably going to love Am I the Genius. Check it out, link down below in the description. Also, go to AmITheJerk.com/submit if you would like to submit your own stories. I served my husband divorce papers after he posted a reel on Instagram making fun of my weight, and now I'm not sure if I went too far or if I overreacted. And at this point, I seriously don't know what to do. So for a bit of context, it's been over a month since this happened. I'm a 32-year-old female and my husband is 30 years old, and we've been married for 3 years now, together for 5. Our marriage isn't perfect, but we make it work. We both were fairly in shape when we first got together, but I gained a lot of weight when we had our kid and haven't since then. We are also all Indians, and it's somewhat acceptable to pull each other's legs. Mostly family does it, present, and there isn't really any malicious intent. So my husband routinely teases me about my weight gain, but I know that he loves me, and I try not to take it personally. Because even I tease him about how long he takes in the shower, and how obsessed he is with styling himself in front of the mirror, innocent stuff like that. Well, my husband has quite the following on Instagram, and usually posts a lot of reels, and it's usually harmless and it's just fun stuff. I was scrolling through Instagram, and I saw a reel about me, how much he loves me and all that, and I thought that it was sweet, but immediately after that, I saw another one, and this one was also about me. It was a 5 years ago versus now picture of the both of us, with a background voiceover. It said the following: before wedding, my responsibility was 55 kilos. Now it is 75 kilos, and it keeps on increasing. This was then followed up by a cackling sound. Now, I don't know what happened, but when I saw this, a switch flipped inside of me. I felt humiliated and ashamed of myself in a way I had never felt before. I felt anger and hurt at my husband for something that was normal ribbing for the both of us. My husband was away on a work trip, so I didn't contact him. I went through some other online forums to try and find advice on similar situations, and most people advise serving divorce papers, and it made me wonder, should I do something like that? Well, cut to the present, and yes, I left divorce papers on his nightstand and went to my friend's house, and that was 2 days ago. The entire family, including him and my parents, have been hurling insults at me for bringing shame to their family. They told me there's no concept of divorce in our culture, and I should just keep my mouth shut of all this feminist garbage, as they put it, and come home to tend to my family, because as a wife and a mother, that's what I'm supposed to do. They also said that nobody will marry me because I am trying to be a divorcee, and this is true in my culture. My husband said that he didn't think I'd snap at him like that, and thought that this warrants a conversation if it really did hurt so badly. I think I may have gone too far, and I may be at risk of being disowned by my family. Should I just accept this compromise? Was I being too dramatic? What should I do? Honestly, from the way you've made this sound, it really does seem like we went from being insulted on the internet all the way to saying, hey, let's get a divorce. Like, I don't know about you, but this seems like such an extreme step. Sure, what he did was incredibly rude. This was seriously hurtful, and it really hurt your feelings. He made fun of your weight online, and he shared it with everybody that he knows. That's not fair, you didn't consent to that, and I don't blame you for being upset. But instead of talking to him ahead of time and being like, hey, I want you to take that down, that really hurt my feelings and I don't like that, or some kind of conversation like that, you instead took the advice of the internet and said, okay, divorce is the next step. Not counseling, not talking through it, not having some kind of intervention, not even expressing your feelings about how that made you feel. Nothing like that. Nope, it's time to get a divorce. In my opinion, I think this is going way too fast. Yes, he does need to apologize. And yes, it seems like some boundaries need to be made between the two of you. You really can say, hey, I don't want to be made fun of anymore and I want this to stop. Stop making fun of my weight and all that stuff. And have some kind of conversation and try and work on everything between the two of you instead of dropping everything in front of you and saying, yep, I'm getting divorced. I don't know, maybe there's other things going on that the original poster is not sharing in this regard, but it really seems from my perspective that this is going way too fast. And sure, I completely recognize that maybe there's some cultural differences here that I'm not getting. Like, clearly there is something I might be missing in this regard. So if you do know more about this culture and you have better insight on what's actually happening here, I would love to hear what you have to say. Please leave a comment down below, because if there is some kind of clarification here, I would love to hear about it. So hopefully something can change here, because yes, he did hurt your feelings, but in my opinion, I don't think you should suddenly jump to divorce just because he did something that embarrassed you online. This next one came from the Am I the Jerk subreddit. Check the links in the description if you would like to submit your own stories. Am I the jerk for not wanting to pay my sister's mortgage despite the fact that we do have the money after I won the lottery? Here's what happened. So to start things out, I did not pay for my sister's mortgage despite paying my parents' mortgage off and financially helping my friend. For some context, I make a lot more money than my sister, and I already pay for her kids' schooling, extracurriculars, and have a college fund for each of them. I also won the lottery recently. My husband and I keep our money private, including the lottery. After my parents' house got destroyed by a hurricane, I paid for a new one for them because they didn't have the funds. Also, my friend got money stolen from her, but she had no evidence. I helped her get back on her feet and paid for her rent for nearly 2 years. Now, my sister and I have never been friends, as I have always been more nerdy and into school, while she was more into athletics and in the arts. She would always bully me as I was the favorite child. Once, she even left me at a park overnight because, according to her, she didn't love me and she hoped I would get taken away. It was a miracle that I didn't. Of course, my parents dealt with her harshly, which made her her hate me even more. One night, my husband and I were out with friends drinking, and I got drunk and accidentally said something about our money, and my friend told my entire family. My parents said nothing, but my sister started going out of her way to do nice things. I paid for a vacation for my parents, my husband's parents, myself, my husband, and our kids, while also including my sister and her husband, as well as her husband's parents. It was short, but it was a nice get-together. So I really do nice things for my family overall. One day, my sister calls me asking if I could pay off her mortgage and pay for a vacation for her and her family to 4 different places over the summer, totaling to around $100,000 or more. But I told her that I couldn't do it as it was a lot of money. She then screamed at me saying she knows I have the funds. Now, although I do, I am saving my money for retirement and emergencies that might come up, and I don't want to spend it recklessly. I am already paying for all of her kids' schooling. She tells me she has always loved me and been so kind, but I reminded her of several events in our childhood which she absolutely denies, such as leaving me at the park overnight and hoping I get taken away, or breaking my arm on purpose, or using her height and athletic ability just to hurt me. She has complained to my parents, and a lot of extended family members are taking her side. Now, my extended family knows I have money and have started being really kind and sometimes asking me for things, and it honestly feels like everybody is now a vulture except for my parents, thank God. Some of my relatives won't even talk to me now that I've refused money, but they all start it in the same way. They say stuff like, "How's your family? How are you? How's the kids? How's your husband in life? Are you doing all right?" And then after about a 3-minute conversation, they start asking for money. One specific case on my husband's side was so bad. He has an uncle who came to me begging for money, claiming that he was out of it. I told him I couldn't give him anything, as it was in trust and retirement funds that I couldn't access. I got to the point where he broke all of my plates from my deceased grandmother, and I was very angry, but I tried to stay calm and collected. Eventually, though, he did storm out. My husband then told me that he did have money. In fact, he had a little over $200,000 left for his retirement. He broke my plates from my grandmother, who I was incredibly close with, and he did it all for nothing. And I honestly was crying for half the night about that. Now, remember, once the cat is out of the bag, I'll never get it back in. I really hope somebody else gets a ton of money so I won't be badgered anymore. Now, so far, I haven't paid for anything besides that vacation, as well as my parents' mortgage and financially helping out my friend and for my sister's children. But I am not paying for anything else, especially not my sister. Maybe I should even stop paying for her children's schooling and activities and take out the college funds for her children and just save that money for me and my children. So am I the jerk in this situation? What should I do? First and foremost, I don't think you're the jerk in this situation. Your immediate family and your extended family, minus your parents, who are thankfully cool about this, they are all acting like complete morons. They are only coming out of the woodwork so they can try and squeeze some money out of you and your husband. And that's not fair in the slightest, because you have it right. Once the cat is out of the bag for this type of stuff, it's never going back in. People will always be coming after you. And unfortunately, I think that's going to be the case for a long time. And it really sucks that you had a moment of weakness and you were drunk and you talked about all the money that you had, because that honestly was the biggest mistake you could have made. Because that kind of rumor is going to spread like wildfire. You will never be able to put that toothpaste back in the tube. Now, when it comes to paying for your sister's mortgage and her children's stuff, I think personally, if I was in your shoes, I would personally keep the commitments that I had already agreed to, just to avoid any potential legal drama that might happen. I mean, it sounds like you're kind of loaded. It sounds like you have a lot of money at your disposal, and the last thing you need is some kind of lawsuit, all because you pull out the college fund or something like that. Remember, people can sue you for whatever they want, even if it's some kind of illegitimate reason. But I think with that in mind, I would personally refuse to pay for anything else moving forward. I think the excuse you use with your uncle, whether it was legitimate or not, of saying that all the money is in retirement funds or in trust funds, might be a good way to stay out of this conversation and protect your financial assets. Because remember, this is your money after all. You have it, it's yours, it's under your name, and you really are not obligated to have to pay for anything. So no, I don't think you're the jerk. Just because you have a lot of money doesn't mean you have to fork it over at the drop of a hat. That, in my opinion, is really weird and honestly really ridiculous, and hopefully for the sake of you and your kids, things get a lot better relatively soon. Am I the jerk for telling my son's pregnant girlfriend that if she keeps disrespecting me, then she will not be living in my house? Here's what happened. So I have a son who got his high school girlfriend pregnant. It was obviously an unplanned pregnancy, and it resulted in my son's girlfriend getting kicked out of her house by her mom. Now, I never liked this girl, but I obviously couldn't let her stay on the streets now that that she's carrying my grandchild, so I let her live in our house. Now, both she and my son gave up on college for the near future, and my son is now working a full-time job so he can provide for them in the future. The problem is that his girlfriend refuses to do anything, but will absolutely all day just lock herself in my son's room, eating snacks and watching videos on my son's computer. I need to drag her out to just help me with cooking and to clean up at least the room she's staying in. But she's always complaining about how I'm working her like a dog, even though she's already in constant pain because of her pregnancy. And then she'll come crying to my son about my treatment of her. Mind you, she doesn't have a high-risk pregnancy, and I know this because my husband and I are the ones fully paying for her medical controls. And I don't put her up to doing tasks like cleaning the toilet or anything similar. But she really did cross the line. After I got dressed up, she asked me where I was going, and when I told her that I'm getting ready for church, her exact response was to say, "I didn't know that there were churches that allowed people in that looked like a lady of the night." At that point, I absolutely had it with her, and I told her straight up that I don't care who she is. I won't allow her to disrespect me while living in my house, and if she can't keep her attitude in check, then she can get out of my house. She pretty much started crying at that point and immediately called my son, who later on also gave me an attitude for treating his girlfriend like garbage when apparently I don't know what she's going through. My husband also thinks that while she was definitely out of line with that, she was probably only acting out because of pregnancy hormones, and that I could have handled the situation better without straight up threatening to leave her homeless. So am I the jerk in this situation? What should I do? I don't think you're the jerk at all. She needs to start being more agreeable around the house. She can't just stay in that room all day and do nothing. That is seriously not okay. She has to earn her keep just like everybody else, and she has to be respectful of the house she's staying in. So her talking to you like that is completely inappropriate. And look, I get the situation. You not only don't like her, but you never expected her living with you after your son got her pregnant. The situation sucks, and I'm really sorry you're going through it. But if she wants to expect to have any kind of home in your house, then in my opinion, she needs to start learning respect and earning her keep around the house. Otherwise, in my opinion, there's definitely going to be problems. Thanks for watching. When you subscribe, make sure to hit the bell to turn on notifications so you never miss a video. To finish listening to all the stories, check out the playlist at the top of the description. And if you want some vibey music to put on in the background, check out easymode. If you like Am I the Jerk, check out Am I the Genius. Everything will be linked in the description.